So I'm getting ready to enter some information into a web-based calculator so we can see just exactly what value a tree brings to our community. But before we do that, let's head to the field and see how to gather the data we need to do so. Okay, the first step in us being able to enter a tree into the tree benefit calculator and to find out exactly what benefit it offers to our community is to identify the species of tree that we're going to measure. There are a number of ways that you can do that. There are several apps out that are really popular that use your phone's camera and artificial intelligence to make identifications of trees, wildflowers, and animals. I do find that they work much better for wildflowers than trees. There are some of the features of a leaf that it just doesn't capture, and often you have to see more than just the leaf to determine tree species. But your mileage may vary, and feel free to use those if you've had good luck with them. A much better option, in my opinion, is to use a guidebook of some kind, and in Kentucky we have access to several really good ones. This right here is one of the ones that's considered a gold standard. It's kind of an older book. This is Trees and Shrubs of Kentucky by Wharton and Barber, and it is a little dated. Some of the species have changed names, but the common names are all the same, and it contains most of the trees that you would encounter in Kentucky. A more modern work that you may prefer would be Peterson Field Guide's Eastern Trees. This is a book that covers the entire eastern portion of the United States, so on occasion you may feel overwhelmed with having to sort through tree species that don't grow in Kentucky to find the one you're looking for, but it's very, very good work. If you're going to use a guide, the one that I prefer personally is this. This is the Tree Finder. It is small but mighty. It's a little quirky, but in a good way, and it uses a series of either-or questions, which is known as a dichotomous key, to work your way through the features of the tree you're looking at to determine what species it is. It doesn't contain all the trees in Kentucky, but it does have a lot of them, and it's going to get you relatively close, if not right on the money, for most of the trees that you're going to encounter. I will also drop a link in the description below that has a link to the Arbor Days website for a tree identification process. It's very similar to the Tree Finder. It's going to ask you what part of the country you live in, and then it's going to ask you a series of either-or questions to narrow it down. It works really well, and you may find that because you can open it on your phone when you're out looking at trees, that it's the most convenient and definitely the cheapest, being free, option that you have access to. So after we determine the species of the tree, we're going to move on to actually measuring the circumference and translating that to the diameter at breast height. There are a few specific circumstances you may encounter infrequently in the field about measurement, and I'm going to pop that in the description below. Also a link to how to handle those situations. It's also going to be on the screen right here as well. But for most trees, you'll find that the measurement is pretty straightforward. So we're going to move on, we're going to get our measurements, and then we're going to enter them into the database. Okay, now that I've used my identification methods to determine that this is a beautiful American beech tree, we are going to go through the process of determining the diameter breast height of this tree. And you're going to need just a few materials to do this. The first thing you'll need is a piece of string. I prefer white. It's easier for me to see my mark once I've made it. You'll need a thumbtack, a marker, something to measure with, and a calculator. And I'll be using my phone for this because that's the most convenient for me, but feel free to use whatever's convenient for you. And before we get started, I'll go ahead and say that some people may have concerns with using a thumbtack on a tree, but for a mature and healthy tree, using a thumbtack won't cause any kind of lasting damage. The tree immediately starts a process called compartmentalization when it's damaged a slight little bit, which protects the rest of the tree from any damage. But if you do have concerns with using a thumbtack, then you could feel free to have a friend or someone else help you to get your string around the tree and held in place, and that would definitely avoid doing that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to measure 4.5 feet from the highest side of this, so the uphill side of this tree, and that's where we're going to make our first mark. Okay, so I have placed my thumbtack in the tree at 4.5 feet above the ground. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your string and you're going to want to attach it to that thumbtack. Then I'm going to run this around the tree as tautly as possible. Everything's snug, and I'm going to use my marker to make a mark where it meets the other end of the string at the thumbtack. Remove your thumbtack. Then I'm going to lay this on the ground against my ruler, and I'm going to figure out just how long this is. So one moment. Okay, so we're going to take that 102 inches that I got from the circumference of this tree, and now we're going to use that to determine the diameter. And it's pretty simple, and on my calculator what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 102 inches, and I'm going to divide that by pi, and I'm getting 32.467, so we're going to call that 32 and a half. So we get a diameter at breast height for this beautiful American beech tree of 32 and a half inches. We can use that to actually punch into our tree benefit calculator to see what the benefit of this tree to our community is. Okay, so now we've got our information and we're back in the office here. We're going to navigate to www.treebenefits.com/calculator, and we're going to be able to enter the zip code in which we found the tree, and we're going to hit submit. And we're going to be brought to this page. Now it gives us three options here. The first one is for us to enter the species of tree we had. Ours was an American beech. The diameter of the tree, and it was 32 and a half. And then this final one is going to give you an option to select the best match here for the area that you found the tree in. So I'm going to choose park or other vacant land and hit calculate. Now it's going to bring up this page, which is a summary, which gives a pie chart and 6 different categories here and exactly what benefit they bring. And then there's a textual summary over here that says this 32.5 inch American beech provides overall benefits of $76 every year. And it goes into some more detail. Now there are some tabs across the top, and if you click on these, we have stormwater, property value, energy, air quality, and CO2. And each of those tabs will give you a more detailed explanation of how those benefits are actually manifested in your community for that tree. And the final tab just explains this calculator and tells who actually helped develop it. So we're going back to our overall benefits here. Now there is one more website that I want to talk about that we can use this information for. And you can find all the pertinent information here at the Adopt a Kentucky Tree, part of the UK College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, the Urban Forest Initiative. And it has a map here, and at the time of recording this, the county I live in, Perry County, actually has no adopted trees, as we can see here. 0. So I'm hoping that by this video being out there and explaining how to do it, that we can flood this program with Kentucky trees in Perry County, and we can represent. So if you scroll a little further down, there's actually a link here that's going to tell you how to adopt a tree. And I've already clicked on it and brought up a tab here. And it's going to ask you to put your name and email address in up top here first. And then it's going to tell you to explain why you chose this tree. And I said that I really enjoy this tree. It's near our local trails in the park. And then strange enough, it asks for the circumference, which we did measure the circumference as part of finding our diameter at breast height. So I just put that in here, 102. It asks if we know what species of tree it is. I did. For some reason, American beech wasn't on the list, so it encourages us to use other if it's not. And then down below, we are able to manually enter the name of the tree, which is an American beech. And after doing so, it'll give you some of the basic information that comes from that same calculator. It's just not as expanded as what we saw a moment ago. Then it's going to ask you where the tree is located and in what county. Now this step is optional because the map can be a little finicky, but you can type an address in here and hit search, and it will take you to an address near the tree, and then you can move the map around until you've pretty well pinpointed where our tree is, and that's right here for me. And the last step is to upload a picture of you and your tree, or your group and the tree. So make sure that you've got your cell phone out or a camera, and you go ahead and grab a picture while you're out there, get your measurements. Then you're going to hit submit. Now I've already submitted my tree previously, and after these are submitted, they are reviewed, and then they'll be added to the map on this other page. So I'm going to include links to all this in the descriptions in case you didn't get a chance to write them down, or if you forget the actual addresses. Listen, I encourage everybody to get out there, take the information that we have gathered up until now, and measure a tree in your community. Find something, a tree that you've always enjoyed the shade of, or perhaps you've always enjoyed watching your kids play underneath that tree. Or maybe it's just a tree that you think is beautiful. But anyways, go out and find it, identify it, measure it, and get that information in on these websites here so that we can continue to show our love for the trees in our community.